And now it's time for some exercises. Now you'll remember from a few slides back that I said there were 3 main areas in which the NIEM uses substitution groups. One was for code tables, one was for entities, and the third was for dates and times. Well, dates and times is going to be the subject of the next 2 exercises, and these are going to be exercises involving substitution groups. So the first exercise starts with the juvenile case object. Now, juvenile case is a special kind of case, and it's derived from more generic kinds of cases, which is in turn derived from a generic activity type in NIEM core. And that means it inherits a bunch of things. And among those things is an activity date representation, representing the concept of an activity date. Now, activity date representation is the head of a substitution group. Your job here is to find out what elements can be substituted for activity date representation. So in other words, the different ways that the NIEM shows an activity date. So again, don't cheat and go on to the solution right away. Pause the video and actually work this out. You can search in Wayfair, you can search in the SSGT, you can search directly in the schemas themselves. So here's the solution. There are 2 different things that can replace activity date representation. One is activity date, which is something to represent a single point in time. The other is activity date range, which is there to show a range of time, a starting and end date, if you will. So we've got 2 different ones. Let's move on and look at activity date in a little more detail. Activity date contains, in turn, a date representation. So the date representation is the different ways to show a single point in time. The date representation object is a substitution head for all the ways that the NIEM represents a concept of a date. So now your task is, using those same search tools, find out all the different ways to represent a date. In other words, all the group members of the substitution group for which date representation is the substitution group head. These are the 6 different ways to represent a date in the NIEM. Now the first 2 are from the intelligence domain. So to be honest, I'm not sure how they utilize them. The first is day of month, which is just, as near as I can tell from the definition, the day of some unknown month. So day 31, day 5, day whichever. The next one, month, is again just the number for a month. So, month 12, month 11, month 3, what have you. The next 4 are all out of NIEM core, and these are kind of the standard ways of representing a date in the NIEM. The first is date, which is a full date. That's year, month, and day. And it's actually an ISO standard for how it actually looks. And when you need to fill in these dates, you can either have an XML editor help you make sure you have the format right, or you can go look it up. But it's basically year-month-day. The next one is date time, which is a full date and time. So it's everything in date plus the time. And again, there's an ISO standard for what these things look like. Again, it's year-month-day, and then some stuff to show the time. The third one is the year, just the year standalone. Right now, the year is 2012, so just a year, absent any month or day information. And then the last one is a year-month combination, the year and a month with no specific day, just a year and a month. And these are the 6 different ways to represent a date in the NIEM. Now, if you actually go and look in that date range object there, you'll see you've got beginning and end dates, and those can be substituted by these 6 versions as well. So there's a lot of flexibility in representing dates in the NIEM, dates and times. Let's do another exercise. Now, instead of talking about times and dates, let's talk about things inside person. The person object has a load of concepts in it, all of which use substitution groups to allow for code table and textual versions of the concept at the same time. Find at least 3. There's more than 3, but just go find 3 using whatever search tool you want. 3 different instances where a person contains something that can be either a code or a text string. So here are the solutions. These are all the different things inside of a person object that can be a code or can be a text string. The first is person blood type, and this one's a little odd because you see the word type and you think, well, person type and name type, and this is actually the one time in the NIEM where we use the word type, where normally in the NIEM we'd use the word category. So normally this would be something like person blood category, but nobody calls the blood type the blood category. So in this case, the NIEM defers to the common usage and uses blood type. But this is an element. This isn't a type. It's just an element called person blood type. And indeed, there's a person blood type code and a person blood type text. There's person body x-rays available, which is not a Boolean. It sounds like it might be a Boolean. And in fact, I went, is that right? And I double checked it. It's not. There's a code table for it or a text string for it. Person citizenship's in there, person organ donor is in there, Person ethnicity is in there. Eye color, hair color are both in there. Race is in there. Resident is in there. Security clearance, person sex, and person skin tone. So these are all different things inside a person object which can be represented by either a code table or a text string. This kind of construction of code tables with text alternatives is very, very common in the NIEM. You'll find it all over the place, which is kind of why we're spending so much time and kind of why we're going to make you do yet another exercise. This exercise involves actually creating a little bit of XML. The idea here is to review the simplified snippet of schema from the NIEM on the next slide. So it's from the NIEM, but we've simplified it down so it's readable on a slide. From that snippet of schema, which I'm going to tell you now is some schema defining some substitution groups, we want you to create two tiny little instance documents, one showing the text version of person eye color and the other showing the code table version of person eye color. And I don't mean complete instance documents, just little snippets are fine. The code table values for person eye color code can be found via Wayfair or via the SSGT, or if you're lazy, BLU, all uppercase, is the code for the color blue. So have at it. And here's the schema to use. Just one quick thing to tell you. You see person full name down there of type NIEM core person name text type. That's just a string. So I didn't want to replicate that whole type here. So that's just a string. So take a look at this and make us a code version and a text version of person eye color. And so here are the solutions we came up with. The first one shows the code version. So there's a person object. Inside of there is person eye color code, and we chose BLU, blue, because my eyes are blue. That's really the only reason. End of person eye color code, followed by the person name, person full name, and I just put some juvenile. You can put whatever full name you want in there. Ending person name and end of the person. Or alternatively, you can use the text color. So you got person eye color text, pale blue for pale blue eyes. I have pale blue eyes, so that's why I picked pale blue. But that's not in the code table. Pale blue isn't a choice in the code table. End of person eye color text, end of person name, or start of person name, person full name, some stuff, end of person name, end of person. So your snippets should look something like this. They're not going to be exact, because you could pick a different eye color if you wanted to, but they should look something like this. Well, let's have one more quick exercise on substitution groups, this time dealing with implied substitution groups. And you don't really see a whole lot of implied substitution groups in the NIEM, or what I mean by that is you see them, but they're not used a whole lot. And that's what this exercise is about. In this case, we're going to look at NIEM core person. Now, NIEM core person contains a lot of other elements, and it's not abstract. It's not an explicit substitution group head. It is, however, an implied substitution group head. What I mean by that is that there are other elements in the NIEM which are of types person type or derived from person type, which list NIEM core person as their substitution group head, making them substitutable for it. So the point of this exercise is, quick, go find what those are. And here we go. There's actually 6 different person objects in 6 different domains that can be substituted for a NIEM core person. There's one in CIFAS, one in immigration, one in intelligence, one in international trade, one in justice, and one in maritime. Now, the idea here is that you could have a CIFAS person that would inherit all the stuff a normal person has, plus have CIFAS-specific stuff in it, sort of a CIFAS person. Or you could have a justice person or a maritime person, which I guess maybe is Aquaman. Or maybe not. It's a maritime person. Now, note, if I want to combine more than one domain, if I want to have a CIFAS/justice person, and there's a lot of overlap between CIFAS and justice in terms of different communities out there and things that would apply in both of those communities, I may need to do that. There is a way to do that. It's called augmentations, and it's way at the end of this presentation, so hang tight on that. Otherwise, you don't usually see much in the way of implied substitution groups. You'll normally either see things like person, where they are domain-specific versions of existing NIEM core elements, or else you see them in extensions, and when we talk in Part 5 about extending the NIEM, we'll talk about that in detail. The only other exception I know of is contact telephone number, which can hold a contact telephone number or can be substituted with things like a contact fax number. So that's an oddball one. That's an implied substitution group that is not a domain-specific version of a NIEM core object. So that's implied substitution groups.